What is up? I'm Danielle, and this week we're talking with Kristina Bentson, one of my good friends from college,
Hey, how's it going?
and Meghan Burke. She's a worship leader down here at the Harbor Church in South Florida.
Hi.
And today we're going to be talking about how singleness is seen as a problem, what it would look like to affirm singleness, and how singleness can actually be one of your greatest strengths. So without further ado, welcome to the Unwed Bride. This is the Unwed Bride, where we challenge culture and empower people. As women who are currently single for different reasons and different amounts of time, we want to bring awareness to some of the issues, preconceived notions, and benefits to singleness and how it is perceived. The Unwed Bride is a show where we want to bring light to situations that might be holding us back, challenge any learned behaviors and beliefs, and empower you to make any necessary changes to live your life to the fullest. Ladies, thank you so much for joining me today. It is an absolute honor to have both of you on here, and I'm so excited to hear all the value that you're going to add today. No pressure. You guys are going to bring it. I know it, and I'm pumped. So, ladies, give us just a quick 30-second background of who you are and what you do for the listeners who might not know you. So, KB, go ahead and go first.
Cool. So, hi, I'm Kristina. I work for a church currently, and I am single, and I'm just living my fullest life right now.
Love it. Love it so much. Megs, what about you?
I also work for a church. I'm a worship leader in South Florida, and I love what I get to do, and I love the season that God has had me in of being single and embracing that.
Yeah, it's so good. Man, you guys are both so good and talented at what you do. So I just want to say that publicly right now. You guys are major assets to where God has you right now. And I can't wait to see what he does with you in the future. But so let's dive right in. Singleness, man, it's been a little while since I've been in this world, but I know that this is such a problem, definitely in the church, but not only in the church. I mean, media and culture pushes relationships and love as well. But I am a strong believer that stories are the best way to jump in. So, do either of you have like a time that either someone totally caught you off guard with I've got someone I want you to meet, or like someone that you haven't even really talked to asking like why you're single?
I mean, I know for me, absolutely. I one time was at work, and this very sweet coworker of mine, I literally came out of a bathroom stall, and she was washing her hands, grabbed me with her wet hands and said, "Oh my goodness, are you seeing anyone right now?" And I'm like, I gotta wash my hands. No, I'm not seeing anyone right now. And she's like, "Oh, good. I have found like 12 people that are single, and I'm inviting them to my house on this day. Please come." And I was, and I'm like, this is so kind of you. Thank you. I did not go.
I was going to ask.
I did not go. But that's probably been a story for others as well. Like, that's, oh, I have somebody for you. Or, oh, have you met this person? And you're awkwardly shoved into a conversation with this new friend of yours.
Yeah. And you're both like, nice to meet ya. Glad we're here in
Yeah.
this same situation together. Like,
Oh
oh,
my
Meg,
gosh.
anything that
Yeah, I
stands
mean,
out?
I think honestly, what I've gotten the most is just those questions like, why are you still single? Like, I, well, first of all, if I knew that, I mean, I think I'd be God. Like, I don't know why I'm still single. And then people love to give answers where God certainly hasn't given any answers. People love to try to figure it out, like they just can't understand why someone's so amazing. You're amazing, and you're all these wonderful things, and which is the intention is sweet. It is
Yes.
good. But uh, that probably is like one of the biggest things I've received, is just like, let me answer the question that God isn't necessarily even answering and doesn't really need to answer,
Right.
because they need an answer. People
Yeah.
need an answer, need to understand this,
Yeah. As if singleness is this massive problem and that there's
Right.
something like wrong with
Wrong.
you or
Yeah.
that you are less than if, like, come on, man. But
Yeah.
so I remember, especially like before I had gotten married and as I was in that single season, and I mean, now I'm again in the single season, it's like either, okay, so especially once people found out I was divorced, like the natural unintended look that I immediately got was like like a pity and like a oh poor puppy face, and I was like, dude, like you don't even know that I'm so much better now than I was then, and I'm excited to be back in this single world, and that is like an unheard of
Yeah.
statement in the church where like singleness is not seen as a gift and a season to savor. It's seen as this like problem that needs to be fixed. And it's like, that's not true. Like, marriage is not this gold trophy that we are all like attaining for. Like, that's not even God's plan for everyone. So then it makes people feel like if they know they're called to be single, it makes them feel less than if we're putting marriage on this like massive pedestal. And that's not, that's like, yes, marriage is a beautiful thing, but it's not like the ultimate goal. And it's just crazy. But what are some of the things that you guys have specifically noticed about how singleness is viewed, especially in the church?
I don't know. I'll go back to, or at least start where, like what I was saying, where people want to answer that question, like you said, because it is seen as such a negative. I think because the church often, people and even like within, like the structure within the church, even we prop up marriage
Yeah.
as like the ultimate promotion, the ultimate like ascent, and so because of that, I think it is like when someone is single, and I mean, when someone is single and in their 30s, forget it.
Yes.
Like it's for sure seen as something negative. Single in their 30s and have never attained it at any point, never experienced marriage, haven't received that yet. And so I think the one that I've received the most, like the answer that I think most people have needed to rationalize this, not just for me, but for many single, especially women in the church that are in their 30s, is, two things. When you don't want it anymore is when it will happen. And so basically communicating that the reason why it hasn't happened is because you want to be married and you want to experience marriage.
Right.
And it must be an unhealthy desire, because if it wasn't, then you would have received it.
Right.
And then the other is, you just haven't fully experienced that Jesus is enough. And those are the answers that I've received the most. And my goodness, it's such a it can be really challenging to navigate that, even when people are sharing what maybe they might feel, or in there again, going back to good intention, they are wanting to encourage you, and there's a heart to encourage in that, but it doesn't feel encouraging,
Right.
when someone is sharing that you haven't experienced the fulfillment of Jesus is enough, and my response is usually like, well, the response I want to give, I should say. I don't know that I actually say it, but I'm going to say it here today. So here
Yeah,
we
you are.
are. The response that I want to give is, I'm sorry, did you experience that before you got married? Like,
Right.
have you like obtained that like full experience of not wanting to be married and that's how you received it? Is that really what you experienced, And 9 times out of 10, that's not actually the case.
Right.
But again, I think so many people, they just don't understand it, and it's seen as this like huge loss, this huge loss of life, this huge loss of experience, this huge loss of and so there has to be an answer to it. There has to be something to explain why on earth you could possibly still be single, which
Right.
is,
Right. KB, do you have anything?
Yeah. I would just add that it does end up being an awkward conversation, right? It's either kind of blaming either your past or, oh, like, did you pray about it, kind of a thing. Blaming your future spouse. Oh, well, they're probably just not ready for this kind of relationship yet. And it's like, like you said, maybe this isn't the future that God has for me. Like, that's definitely a possibility. And it does get to be that awkward conversation of, hey, maybe you just need to fill in the blank. Look on online dating or join a small group with like other people like you.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, yes, all of those things might be true. Like, okay,
right.
your husband might not be ready, or like, yes, maybe Jesus is just drawing you closer to himself. But those are not like solutions that need to happen before, like, or problems that need to be resolved before this big solution of relationship can happen. Like, and it's the same thing of like, yes, I do believe that God does place his desires in your heart to fulfill them. So if you have the strong desire to be married, I do believe that God is going to fulfill that. But at the same point, like, he could also just be drawing you closer to him. Like, he can 100% fill that need and that desire and like that community. He can absolutely fulfill that. So I think he speaks in a lot of ways that we don't always, the answer that we get is not what we expected.
For sure. For sure. And I think honestly, not just like God can meet even singles. Like, I actually believe that he can meet us like deeper and more richly because there's a greater necessity for it. It's a different story. It's not a comparison of marriage or singleness, because he's going to work within each journey and each story, because he's got the same goal for all of us, right? It's to look more like him, to ultimately become his bride. So he's going to do that regardless of whether or not we're like in a natural marriage. But I think for me, like, I always honestly look back to, like, you look at the life of Paul and what he was able to experience, and how he was able to be not only used by God, but also to know the depth of friendship with Jesus, because it's literally what he had. And I think oftentimes, like, I think even looking to Paul or others for sure, but like, I think even as it relates to like qualifications for being in ministry, and I'm sure all of us could probably speak into that, like, as women and as single women, and it's almost like it disqualifies you. Like, it disqualifies you to be in ministry as a single woman. And at single period, it can be a disqualifier, because marriage often is seen as what qualifies in the church for certain things. And so, but again, you look to the life of Paul and what he was able to accomplish, and because he didn't get married, he gave himself and his life fully and completely to the gospel. And I think that's a massive paradigm shift that really does need to take place in the church, to empower people in single, whether it's single seasons or an actual life call to singleness. If somebody is called to being single for a season or for a lifetime, like, it's likely because of the purpose and the calling that is on their life, whether that's in ministry within a church, or it's to a different sphere of influence in the marketplace or wherever, but ultimately for the promotion of the gospel, but
Yeah.
currently that's not how the church, again, generalizing, but that's not how the
Right.
church sees it.
Right. It's not like singleness is seen as like singles aren't lacking anything. Like, singles are no more or less deserving of or experiencing in God's love. Like, they are not incomplete until or if they meet their spouse. Like, how damaging of a thought is that if it's being conveyed more often than not that singles are just always waiting for their spouse and aren't experiencing God's full purpose for their life or his whole heart? Like, then what if they can never get married? Did they completely miss God's plan for their life? Like, there's plenty of people in the Bible who never got married. You just mentioned Paul, Lydia, Jesus himself, just to name a few. Like, so if you are walking in the mindset of like singles are just waiting for marriage, like, and that God's full purpose isn't complete until in their life until they do, like, okay, then what about Jesus? Like, Jesus is not the exception. He's the example that we're supposed to be following. So there's a massive argument there for singleness as like being this amazing season. And that season might be your whole life or it might not. But if Jesus did it, I'm striving to be like him. So I think I can do it too. Like, drives me nuts.
Absolutely. Yeah, so true. There's also, I know, like, for me, like, I have helped start like this young adults group here, and what I started to realize was people just want community, right?
Yes.
But the more you talk to them and stuff, there started to come out like, oh, well, the suggestion box. You guys should have like a speed dating event. You guys should have like a singles meet.
Yeah.
And there becomes like this little twisted, like, knife jab a little bit. And you're kind of like caught in between. All right, what are you here for? Too,
Yeah.
which it also is another like awkward conversation. But you're so right though, as far as like, this is just a season of growth for everyone. And just the fact that, I think too, I meant to mention this earlier, that there is this emotional balance of, hey, I don't want to rush my future spouse or vice versa type of a thing. I want to be emotionally healthy, relationship healthy.
Yes.
For this person.
Yes. Oh,
Amen.
That is so good.
Yes.
I almost got engaged in college, and I would have been miserable if that marriage would have followed through. And so I heard the other day this quote about needing, like, you should know the calling on your life before you step into a relationship and get married. And I could not agree with that more. Like, because I would argue my marriage held me back from, my purpose, my calling, all these things, especially with the evidence that has now proceeded of like me being out of that marriage and this whole new world of like Holy Spirit and all these things being opened up to me, and I'm coming back to life again. But it is so important to know who you are and the calling that God has on your life before you step into marriage, because what if you marry someone who who that doesn't line up with? Like, then that is going to either affect your calling or your marriage. Like, and I am definitely not willing to let it affect the calling on my life again. Like, I am so pumped to be in this season right now as a single woman of pursuing God, pursuing his heart for me, growing emotionally, physically, spiritually, like all of these ways that my marriage held me back in. So I think I have a completely new perspective and lens on the importance of being emotionally healthy and not rushing into marriage because you're in college and it's ring by spring, or because you're 30 and all of your other friends are married and having babies, or drinking and blacking out and you're just stuck in the middle over here like, I don't know what to do with my life. But I think one of the most neglected groups of people in the church is singles. And when it's talked about from stage, it's in form of looking towards marriage and relationships. And oftentimes their solutions are like to start these single groups or singles events. But then they end up turning into these speed dating, whether they're intentional or not. It feels like a speed dating event because you're just there knowing that all these other people are single. And it's like, all right, is my match here? Like, it's such an awkward, it's so awkward.
It
Yeah.
is.
Here's the other thing too. I think a lot of people, two thoughts. A lot of people think singles as young adults, but young adults is from 22 to 35 now. And then there's a lot of single again, like
Right.
yourself, Danielle.
Right.
There's a lot of scope when it comes to singleness.
In regards to wholeness, and it's I think oftentimes there's even like the phrase like find my other half, and like, oh yeah, just like let me find my other half. And for me it's been a journey, but it's been something that, like, honestly, from a young age, it was a recognition and a revelation, having come out of a family of divorce. It was a recognition and a revelation of that is dysfunctional. like
Yeah.
like two halves making a whole. Like, no, God, I want to be a whole person that comes together in a partnership with another whole person. And
Right.
so what does that fully look like? I don't know, but I do know that that's part of the purpose and the journey that God has had me on in the many years of singleness that I did not expect. I didn't expect, and I did not want, like I'm not going to sit here today and be like, I've been content in all of my years of singleness and I'm just thriving and living my best life all the time, or in all those years. That is not the case, actually. And there's actually nothing wrong with that tension either.
Right.
But in the tension and in the midst of that, it's been this like beautiful journey of wholeness where I have, and it's not to say that you can't obviously go like after wholeness in marriage, but it is significantly harder. Having walked that out with many married friends and watching the struggle as you're working through all of your stuff and they're working through all of their stuff, and all of your stuff is like this because you're one. It is significantly more difficult, and it doesn't have to be. It certainly doesn't have to be. If we are willing to embrace the season that God has us in, and to not respond to the pressure to be married because it's what to obtain value even in the church. If we can embrace the seasons of singleness that God gives us, whether that's 3 years or 5 years or 20 years, whatever that looks like, I think that saying yes to that process of receiving a full revelation of who you are, like what my identity is as a daughter, as a son, like who does God say that I am, allowing him to come and heal the deep places in my life, so that when he actually like brings me together with another person, there is nothing about that person that is making me whole. There is nothing about that
Yeah.
person that I actually need from them. I get to receive from them. We get to walk out life together as partners. And I just believe that that's the Father's desire for all of us. Like, it's his desire for us to not look to another person to fulfill or complete us.
Yes, there's so much wisdom in that. And no, singleness is not easy, but neither is marriage. Like any season that you're in, there's going to be pros and cons, things that are tough, things that are easier, but like there is so much richness in singleness. It's not something to degrade. Like there are so many benefits, especially as you were talking about ministry. I mean, that's literally why the Bible says it is better to be single, because then you can focus all of your attention on me. You can focus everything that you have on me and what I have for you, and not have to balance it with this other person or these kids, or what, like all of your focus and attention can be on the calling, the purpose that God has on your life and intimacy with him. Like there is so much richness in that. And as well as even on a personal level of like, I'm free to go out and go have dinner with friends. Not that I couldn't do that when I was married, but it's like you don't have this person to ask permission or to include in your life or to whatever. Like there is so much richness in being single personally, spiritually. Like there's a lot of benefits to being single. Let's dive into those. KB, what are you? I know you've got some.
Yeah, I think, oh my gosh, the whole laundry list, right? I was actually spending time with my old roommate yesterday, and she's got 3 kids, a husband, 2 dogs, like the busiest life. She
Yeah.
is full-time mom. And we had arranged for me to come over and just hang out for like an hour and a half, super short. So I came over, got to, spend time with her kids, spend time with her. And when I left, I just felt full. Like, you let me come into your home, your space, your vulnerable like life, spend time with you, even though I haven't seen you in months. And then I go home and I still feel like the connection, right? And she wrote
Yeah.
back to me and said, I just appreciate how you don't mind the mess in the background. You don't mind that I'm wearing like a shirt that has stains all over it, or, fill in the blank. She's like, I just am so appreciative that you can come fit in with us and
Yeah.
just pour into me because I feel so empty. And that's all of us, right? Like, we all want to be poured into. And I usually say, if I'm meeting up with someone for coffee or whatever, hey, like, who's pouring into you
Yeah.
and who are you pouring into?
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter if they're single or if they're married or if they're, like a kid or if they're an adult. Like, we're all in that need of like being heard, like feeling loved, and just being reminded that you are God's child and you're chosen, type of a thing. So I usually keep those in mind. But I just love this season because it is, like you girls have been saying, like the best time to fully dive into God's word. Like, over the past few months, I felt more close to God than I have in the last like 10 years almost.
Yes.
And
Yes.
after going to like Christian schools and Bible studies and being so thrown into, those things are wonderful. They're great. But at the end of the day, it is about this relationship, like, and then this relationship, type of a thing. The up and down, like you and God,
Yeah.
and then you and community,
Yeah.
whoever that may be.
So good. Yeah, I think mine honestly is similar, and again, I'll just say, like, it's been a process to embrace singleness. And I just want to say that too to anyone who's listening, like, to this, like, it's okay. Like, if you are not there, someone asked me today as I was just like even preparing for this, like, are you content in your singleness? And I really had to like think about that. And I was like, yeah, today I am. I maybe wasn't yesterday, like it's a day to day. But the beauty that for me, like that I've experienced in this season of singleness is, gosh, the intimacy with Jesus that I know for a fact I would not have if I had gotten married. I wouldn't
Yeah.
have it. Like, to know that he can fully satisfy me because there is no other person or no other thing that is as accessible for that kind of satisfaction, to have experienced him in such a way out of great desire and great longing for connection, to because the reason why people want to do all of the things and the speed dating and the like, well, what about the singles? It's because we were made to be known. We were made to experience oneness, and we were made to be known. And
Right.
so the desire to be known is certainly like a huge part of that is in marriage, but you can be known in community, you can be known in family, not just like nuclear and like natural family, but within family that God puts around you. And
Yes.
you are completely and fully known by Jesus. And so that has been the greatest value of an extended season of singleness for me. And I wouldn't change a moment. Like, I would not change any of it. In the moments that I have found myself in my life wishing or hoping or wanting someone to be with me in it as a partner. But in those moments, I have encountered Jesus as that partner and as that person in ways that I would have never imagined. Makes it all worth it.
Yes. I mean, we're supposed to look to Jesus, look to the cross. Like, we are absolutely made for connection and community. And he gives us that with himself, with other people, through marriage. He gives us that in plenty of ways. But I I heard a quote the other day where it's like the strongest point of the cross is the nexus. It's where the vertical and the horizontal meet. And so our lives are to be both vertical and horizontal. Vertical, our relationship with God. Horizontal, our relationship with each other, with our family, with
Yeah,
those people that God has placed in our lives. But then it brings me to an argument for marriage and for that relationship of that strongest point is going to be where those collide. And if your vertical relationship is not as strong as your horizontal or vice versa, like, then your marriage is not going to be as strong as it could have, should have been when you do finally meet that person. So, especially in the singleness, like, be focusing on those relationships vertically and horizontally, because
for sure.
those are going to be things that are only going to strengthen that future marriage if that is part of God's plan for your life.
100%. And if you're single, I think practice vulnerability in community. Like, practice, like,
Yes.
that's such a huge part of being single in this season. Like, that doesn't, again, being known isn't just in marriage. And so if you are a part of community, and if you're not, find a community, find your tribe, your people, like, invite that into your life. um, Take time to invest in those relationships and practice vulnerability, practice authenticity. Like, it is worth it to do that, whether you're in a marriage or you're single and you're doing it with the people that God has put around you. Because even in marriage, like, practicing that and doing that with just one person is not going to ultimately refine you or do the work that God has intended. Like, you still need other people. And so cultivate that now, like, cultivate it in your singleness.
Yeah. And marriage is not the solution for that. I'm sorry to break it to you, but I know plenty of people that feel so alone in their marriage. Like, marriage is not the solution. Marriage is not the golden trophy. Like, I was alone in my marriage, and I feel more connected to the people around me, both of you included, now that I have exited my marriage. And so there needs to be, like you said, this paradigm shift of marriage is not the solution. Marriage is something that is only going to add to your life once you are emotionally and spiritually healthy with the Lord and those around you.
So good.
But I want to take a turn. Like, what would it look like to affirm or acknowledge or encourage the singles in the church or outside of, in a way that doesn't imply just a need for relationship? Like, and if you can't think of what it would look like to affirm singles without mentioning a relationship, then you might be a part of the problem. Like, it's talking about a lot of these things that we've talked about today and more. Like, we are not here saying we have the answers for everything, but the purpose of this podcast is just to help make people think and challenge any learned behaviors and beliefs. So I'm genuinely asking, like, what would it look like for a church, for anybody, to affirm people in their singleness without tying it to anything that has to do with a relationship?
I think for me, I feel the most seen when, the first questions aren't relationship wise, but they're, hey, what's something that you're excited about right now? What's something, that you're getting into, whether it's a hobby, a book, an adventure type of thing. This is the most adventurous part of your season, right? Like,
Right.
I'm traveling all the time. I'm meeting new people. I'm collaborating on like work things. Like, there's so many things to do. Aside from, like my relationship status, because at the end of the day, like, you're right, this isn't our identity type of thing. And a lot of people, it's the same questions though, even if you are married, it's like, oh, when are you having kids? It's that same, it's always like the natural question. Like, people say, hi, how are you? But they're not really listening for your answer.
Right.
Yes.
But I ask my friends, how are you doing today? It gives a specific, like, not just, hey, hey, what's that? Oh, yeah, that's nice. Now I got to tell you something. It's all about me type of thing.
Right.
Yes.
Where the question should just be directed at my, my person that I'm talking to. There's so many things. And a lot of the times I try to keep my life off of social media and taking breaks from social media, totally deactivating your Facebook, Instagram, fill in the blank, and have these people actually genuinely ask you, what are you doing with your life? Like, I really want to know. And let me tell you, you will see a differentiation between your close friends and people who are watching from a distance. And I do think there is a healthy boundary in that as well.
So good.
Yes. That is so good.
So
Megan,
good.
do you have anything?
I mean, it's just an agreement, but like, I think it's really as simple as don't ask those questions. Like, just don't
Especially
ask.
if they haven't given you permission to.
Yeah, like, maybe don't start there. Maybe don't go there at all unless they go there. Like, that's one very simple and beautiful way to invite singles into a space to not feel like they're the problem. Like, just don't ask the dumb questions,
Yes.
That's a big one to me. And I think then the other one is like, something that came to mind. I don't know if it's really answering this question, but I felt to like say it. And KB, you even shared a beautiful example of this, and I've experienced similar. Like, man, if you, it's on both sides. But if you're married and you have kids, or you're like doing life and you're just going, like, invite single people into your life. Like, invite them into it. Like, let them be in your life, and vice versa, like, so that we can have even a greater, let's bridge this gap to where there's not this segregation of like, okay, here are the marrieds with young kids, or married with kids over here, and then the singles are over here. Like, no, that's not the kingdom. Like, let's integrate it, because if this is not our identity and there's a give and take that we can receive on both sides, like, then let's do do that. Like, let's really do life and do family together. Scripture says that he puts the lonely in families. And so
Yes.
there's lonely, it's not even a bad thing. It's just a term like of aloneness. So like, invite singles in your community or in your sphere into your life and allow yourself to receive from theirs, because there is so much to be given on both sides.
I
Yeah. I mean,
totally agree.
yeah. It's like mentorship in a way of, don't only do life with people who are in the same stages of life as you. There's not that much growth in that.
No, there's not.
There's not much challenging. There's not much thinking outside of the box. Like, if you survey all of the people in your life that you hang out with and everyone is in the same season as you, I would beg the question that you're not growing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you need to challenge yourself. And I want to be in those situations with families and crazy kids running around. Like, that's probably the best birth control for me. Like, I don't want that right now, but there's so much that I can learn from them. And how are they loving on their kids? How are they loving on their spouse? Like, what are their frustrations? I can live vicariously through them. They can live vicariously through me. Like, there's so much that can be said there. And yeah, it's so good.
I totally agree. There's also, that just reminded me too, I have a couple friends who come to church with me and stuff like that that identify as LGBTQ plus. And there is a huge like, hey, I'm lonely and I've chosen celibacy.
Yes.
I've chosen the single life. What now for me?
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm standing there. I'm like, you're not alone.
Right.
You are loved like so much. But it's that whole, you're standing there and you're like, what now for me? But
yeah,
I think, like you guys were saying, like, it doesn't matter what stage or age or, identity you're in, or if you're married or whatever, like everyone's kind of looking like, we're all adults and we thought that we would know more.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
right.
I think too, like, if we just could level the playing field and remove these labels, we actually would come to find out that we're actually not that different, that we are experiencing similar things in different ways. But at the end of the day, again, the end goal is for all of us to look more like Jesus and to ultimately be his prize and his reward. And so the means to get there might look different in different seasons for sure. But if we can like remove the labels and level the playing field, we will find that we have way more in common with one another, and then the ability to encourage and strengthen one another than we think. And we're missing out if we're not doing that. Like you said, like we are significantly missing and that's what I would say, even like as to the greater question of what we're talking about here is singleness being a problem in the church. Like if this is not happening within your community, where singles are seen as valuable and seen as like having as much to contribute and bring to the table, there is a massive hole. Like there is a massive miss in that, because there's a perspective that is like completely being disregarded. That is valuable.
Yeah. And I was reading an article the other day. I'll put a link to it in the description, but it said singleness could be one of the most countercultural and powerful ways to make the sufficiency of Christ known to unbelievers and believers alike. Singleness is a gift from God, not a punishment or a waiting period. Marriage is not a reward for singleness, because singleness is a gift in and of itself. And I had to include that because that is so, so true. I mean, if you are feeling like you are lacking, then you need to dive into your relationship with Jesus, because I'm telling you, there is always so much more. He has so much more for you, regardless of how deep or shallow your relationship with him is. Like, he can always take you to new levels. I heard an example the other day of like Christianity being like a mudroom in a house. Like you walk in, you're so familiar with the mudroom. You've seen the mudroom 400,000 times, but nobody told you that there was the rest of this house to explore. Like there's new bedrooms, there's a kitchen, there's a living, like there's so much more. And you've solely been living in this mudroom. Like there is always more to explore. Okay, then once you've explored that house, you don't realize that that's just the west wing of this entire mansion. Like there is always more and deeper places that he can take you. So if you're feeling like you're lacking, dive into your relationship with Christ, because it's okay to feel the desire for marriage. It's okay to feel the desire for a relationship. We are created to feel that desire to be known and to be in community. But if you feel like you're lacking and if you're feeling it as a negative, then you really got to dive into, number one, your relationship with Jesus, and number two, your relationship with others who are going to see you and hear you and know you and understand you and love you. Like, ooh.
Absolutely.
Let them pour life into you.
Yeah.
Let them speak life into you. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So what we've kind of talked about it throughout this whole episode, but as we begin to close, what advice do you guys have for singles? Like if somebody's like, all right, I'm single and I hear what you're saying, but like now what? What advice do you guys have for people who are currently walking? Okay, so either people who are walking in singleness right now or people who have singles in their life that they don't know how to relate to.
I think for those who are single, and you're feeling content, but actually wanting to be encouraged to the next level type of thing, I say exercise your love muscle in the sense of, if it's not serving for the church, which is totally fine. Churches are always looking for help type of a thing, whether it's in their kids, worship, etc. ministries. Like there's always a ton of places to volunteer. Go into your community. Like there is a ton of different outreaches, humanity things. Like there's a bunch of different like options for you.
Yeah.
And if you don't find one that you're interested in, you could definitely start one and people will show up.
Yeah.
100%. Otherwise, like if you're just in a season of like mending yourself, start with your home. Like, if your place is cluttered or is just like a dumping ground and then you sleep there, like that has a lot to say about your space, right? Where you live and sleep. So I would encourage you to kind of make your own oasis, like take care of yourself, like mind, body. Like if you think therapy is a part of that journey, that's a great place to start. And do some spirit healing, like talk to someone who's like a mentor who's walked in faith for a while. Like look for that person. And if you can't find that person, pray that Jesus sends you someone. I know that for me that there was a time where I prayed like, God, I just need new friends. Like, there's a saying that your 5 closest friends is like the sum of who you are. And if you're looking at your friends and you're kind of like maybe this person isn't pouring life into me. They're not really encouraging me or, speaking life into me, then maybe you got to rearrange your life a little bit. I would definitely agree and reiterate again, like your relationship with God just on a you and him level. And a lot of the time our conversations of prayer, right, are God, like, thank you for this day. Thank you for the food. Very shallow. I encourage you to dive deeper. And I was listening to another podcast and this woman asked, kind of challenged, hey, ask God the question, God, what is it that you want for me right now?
Yeah.
Please reveal that to me. And sometimes the question is like, what do you need from God right now? Whether that's God, come into my space and fill me where I'm feeling lonely, where I'm, feeling discouraged and upset, like God didn't give us those sad feelings, like, there's always temptation that we're dealing with, or discouragement, from the evil one. And honestly, like, it is a battlefield every single day.
Mm-hmm.
And you can choose to either sit in the lie or kind of wake up and be like, you know what? I'm going to put on the armor of God today, and I'm going to move forward, and I'm going to let my friends know, hey, can you guys pray for me? Because I'm kind of in a moment and I need your help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good. Yeah. I mean, I for sure am in agreement with all of that. Like, take care of yourself, take the opportunity. If you're single, take the opportunity for self-care, for healing, for going deeper spiritually. And I think, again, I'm going to go back to this point because I just feel like it's important. Like, be honest with yourself and with God about where you are in this season of singleness. It's okay. Like, it's okay for that
Yes.
process. And it's okay to not be in a place of being content. It's okay to feel the tension. In our humanity, we were created for communion. And so it's okay to feel the tension of that, but be honest with yourself and with God and with your friends, even in that space. And I think that's one of the things that I thought of as well. Like, practice, as I said earlier, vulnerability, but in practicing vulnerability, practice telling your friends what you need, like what it is that you need from them. Like, it's okay to say that, and it's okay to share that, and it's okay to say, like, hey, I'm in a season where I'm grateful that I'm single, and I'm grateful that I'm here, but I kind of need someone to just, like, genuinely check in on me every day. Like, just to feel like I'm not alone. And I know it's not bad that I'm alone, but it'd be great to not feel alone. Like, be honest, be human. Like, it's okay. You do not have to, in the same way that singleness is not a problem, it is also not a problem to be a human. Like, there's very real things about our humanity, and God does not despise it. He made us this way on purpose to need him ultimately. And so obviously we go there first, and we allow it to draw us into deeper communion with Jesus, into greater intimacy with him. But like we said, it's that intersection. So it's both. So, and then if you're not single and you're married and you can't, are having a hard time connecting with maybe single people that God has put around you, I would, in addition to what we already said about inviting them into your life, I would encourage, like, to ask them questions of, what do you need in this season? Or how can I be a friend to you in the season of life that you're in? Like, help me to help. Like, again, we don't have to we don't have to think we have to have all the answers. It's okay to ask the questions. It's okay. Don't ask the dumb questions, but it's okay to ask, like, it's okay to ask, what do you need in this season? How can I be a good friend? How can I meet you in your life in this season that you're in?
Yeah, I love that you said about singleness, like, talk to your friends, like, start, and how you said love muscle, like, start strengthening the muscles that you have now of, like, communication is a vital point in relationships. Like, if you can communicate with your friends, how much more are you going to be able to communicate with somebody that you are so intimate with? Like, start practicing those tools now. Start getting your communication better. Start working on yourself, and start working on those tools that are going to be so helpful once you're in a relationship, or that just make you a better person in general. Like, again, relationships are not the goal, but if you are making yourself a better person, you're going to be a better person in an eventual relationship. But also, don't be afraid to tell God how you're feeling.
It's good.
He's not afraid of it. He created you. He knows you better than you know yourself. So don't be afraid to tell him, like, God, I'm really frustrated right now. Like, he's not afraid of that. Like, he can handle it. And so he's not punishing you. He's not withholding any good thing from you because of something that you've done. Like, that is not his heart. He is not this angry God looking down on you, trying to smite you because you stole something 4 years ago. Like, he's not holding all of that against you. He's not withholding any good thing from you because of anything that you have done. Like, it is all a part of his plan. It is all a part of his timing. And the things that you learn in the process are only going to make you better. And I also want to say, if you're in a relationship right now that brings you down, like that you're not feeling that you can be yourself in, if you're in a relationship that's kind of dragging you down right now, it's probably not the relationship for you. So don't let the fear of being single again keep you in a toxic relationship. Like, there's so much beauty in singleness and there's so much excitement in singleness. Don't let the fear of being single keep you in a situation that is probably not good for you. And if you are feeling something in your gut right now, and I'm talking to you. So,
so good.
The grass is not always greener, but if you're in a dead lawn, you might need to move.
It's so good. That's so good. I
yeah,
think one last point that I just felt, because everything we said was so rich and deep. Also have fun. Like, take advantage of the time and take the trip or do the thing, like whatever that is. Like, have invest in yourself in that way. You are worthy of enjoyment before marriage. Enjoyment and pleasure and delight does not only exist within marriage and children and family, although all of those things are beautiful. Enjoy the season. Take advantage of it and embrace it in every way and have fun. Just have fun. Throw the dinner party. Go on the dream trip. Like, do the things. Do all the things.
Yes, that's so good. I know KB's a pro at that. And especially just focusing on, like, I can do me right now, again, without having to ask permission, plan for other things, budget for my spouse or the kids. Like, there's so much fun, in singleness. And KB, do you have anything to add to that?
I would just say, yeah, absolutely. Do those things, do those fun things. And it is okay to be single. Just know that God has your best interest. Like, he has a plan for your life and he designed you for a specific purpose and he's faithful. And I think a lot of us forget in like the everyday rush of everything. And I've just found that, like, I'm in a season of like, God, I know that you can fill these empty places when I'm feeling lonely and tired and confused and I just don't know. And as much as I love having fun, I have to also balance and say to myself, you know what? I'm also not searching for those things to fill my joy. Like, Jesus is my sense of joy, 100%. And it's a daily reminder, right? Like, and like you were saying, Danielle, like, if you're listening to this right now, like, and feeling something in your gut, it's probably the Holy Spirit speaking to you. So listen to him. Listen to that.
Yeah. So good, man. Ladies, I am honored to have you on the show today. I knew you guys were going to bring it. You guys were chosen for a reason. And I'm just so thankful for you guys being in my life and being that community that I can fully be myself with and tell you my fears and tell me all the good and bad things. But no, I love you both dearly. And thank you so much for taking the time to be here today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I love it. So, hey guys, that's all we've got for today. Thanks for tuning in and we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for listening. You can find us on all social platforms at The Unwed Bride. And for exclusive content, head on over to the Patreon link in the description. See you next time.